Hey folks, Dale Davidson here, the Dear VA guy, and thank you for tuning in today. Hey, today, a little bit different. We've got a Veterans Toxic Exposure Game Plan. So, if you've been exposed to toxins or chemicals or radiation, whether it be at Fort McClellan or whatever of the over 100 toxic bases around, we've got a practical step-by-step strategy for you if you've got an injury or health condition that may be linked to toxic or chemical exposure during your military service. And so we're here to help organize your evidence, your strengths, your weaknesses and things, and protect you and your long-term health and well-being. So let's start off number one. We got to identify what you were exposed to. Okay? So what we got to do, we got to say, okay, where was I? Well, I was at Fort McClellan, or I was at Fort Bragg, or wherever you were. When were you there? And how was your exposure likely? How did it happen? How did it likely occur? Well, I was at Fort McClellan, and I stood guard post outside the shed that said, "Do not enter, radiation danger." That may be it, okay? Whatever you feel, how you may have been exposed, we need to know. List all the bases and your duty stations, where you served, including temporary duty assignments. Don't forget temporary duty assignments. A lot of times we come up across people that say, well, I TDY'd over here for just a couple of weeks, and there was really no orders, I was just sent. Document it. We need to know, because that TDY is where you may have been exposed. And if there's no documentation, we got to figure out how we can document that you were actually there. All right? So we've got to know where you were. List where you were all the time. Okay? Now, research the contaminants associated with wherever your duty station was. Was it Fort McClellan with PCBs, VOCs, chemical agents? Camp Lejeune. You know, Camp Lejeune is rated number 1 toxic base. Okay. Was it PFASs? You know, those forever chemicals. There are hundreds of websites out there that you can search what chemicals were at what base. Okay. What components that may have caused you your injury were at what base. Obtaining your unit records, your training records, showing your assignments near contaminated areas. Describe your MOS. Were you a firefighter? Well, I was a firefighter, so I was probably exposed to those forever chemicals called PFASs. It's a big long word, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Maybe I was in maintenance, so there's chemical handling. Maybe I was pulling off asphalt shingles off the side of a barn, or side of a hut, whatever it was. What was your MOS? We need to know. Cross-reference all of this stuff. I know you're thinking, wait a minute, this is getting complicated here, but I can tell you how to do that. With EPA records, Department of Defense records, VA contamination data. Now, how do you do all that? There's this thing, I'm sure everybody's heard about it. It's called this AI, artificial intelligence. There's a program out there called ChatGPT. Upload everything to ChatGPT and tell that to cross-reference everything to see what did the EPA say about PCBs versus the DOD and the VA, and get all of that together. You don't have to understand it. You just got to get it together and get it to somebody who can interpret it for you. Number 2, list your exposure to link your exposure to your medical condition. This is where we've got to demonstrate your nexus. That's the connection between your toxic exposure and your illness. That's critical here, because unless you were over in the Middle East with burn pits, we don't have any presumptions at Fort McClellan, or we don't have any presumptions probably at your base. So we've got to show this nexus. It's critical. So you need to gather all your medical records, not only from the VA, but from your private medical providers. Confirm your diagnosis with your doctor. Now, make sure your diagnosis is in environmental or occupational health. Tell your doctor, I was in the U.S. Army, I was a MP at Fort McClellan, and this was my MOS, and this is where I was doing, and I was exposed to these chemicals. Here's a list of the chemicals I was exposed to. Tell the doctor that, and let the doctor put together his or her nexus statement or her diagnosis. Don't accept the routine blood test. Tell your doctor that a routine blood test is not enough. I don't care what my cholesterol is and my triglycerides are. I want to know, do I have PCBs in my blood or urine? Or do I have PFASs in my blood or urine? There are all kinds of different tests out there that can help the doctors determine what toxic chemicals are in your bloodstream or in your urine or in your body. Look, there's no single toxic exposure panel for blood work. Your test has got to be chosen based upon which contaminants you were likely exposed to. That's why it's so important to have your MOS, where you were, when you were there, all of those things. Tell your doctor, do the research for your doctor and say, I want to be tested for A, B, C, D, E based upon my research, okay? Now, create a timeline showing your exposure, showing I was exposed, I was okay for a little while, now I've got some symptoms here. Go to the VA public health page on Google. There's the EPA you can go to. There's all kinds of different toxic chemical and substance and disease registries out there that you can, you got the entire internet out there that you can search now using AI to figure out what symptoms, what exposures, and all of that, and put it together in a timeline. Give that to your doctor, request a detailed nexus letter saying, look, based upon my service at this base during this time, I was exposed, or the veteran said he was exposed to PCBs. Based upon this, it's at least likely as not that the veteran has thyroid cancer or whatever your medical condition is. It's more likely than not your exposure, your service caused your injury, your disease. Now, if you haven't filed, file. If you filed but been denied, file to reopen. You can submit a new 526EZ, but include all the new evidence. Your service records, location, exposure risk, medical diagnosis, nexus opinion, all of those things, all that research that you can do, include it and let the VA wade through it. But make sure you include it in a very logical manner. If you have friends that you still keep in contact, attach a buddy statement verifying the exposure condition. If one of your friends has been ruled disabled or gotten a rating because of exposure, y'all were there at the same time, seems to chance that, hey, his exposure, I'm exposed, I should be rated also, right? So get a buddy statement. You may want to reference the PACT Act and relevant studies. Again, go out there to Google on the internet AI, and they can pull these studies in and say, look, I'm trying to find any kind of toxic risk exposures for Fort McClellan in Alabama. And boom, it comes up. Read the study. Build your evidence. Build your evidence with your service and personnel records, your DD 214, all your duty assignments, including your TDYs. Don't forget your TDYs, okay? Include environmental reports on base contamination. Again, the Fort McClellan study, print it off. If the VA Public Health has one or the EPA has one regarding the specific chemical that you are alleging that you were exposed to, print it off and send it to them. Get your medical records together with the appropriate lab results. Not every lab result or lab test fits your exposure. Make sure that whatever lab blood test that you're getting done, it fits your exposure profile. There's no routine blood test. If we need to, let's get us an expert medical nexus letter. If your doctor says no, we can always run this past another doctor who maybe specializes in this. Maybe you live in a small town and the doctors don't do these kinds of things. There are doctors out there, if you will give them your medical evidence, they will look at it and they will write you a letter. It's all on the internet. You need to write a personal statement describing your exposure and the impact of your exposure on your health. Pour it on. Say, look, because of this, I can't do A, B, C, and D. I can't play with my grandkids. I can't, whatever it is you can't do because of your exposure, lay it on the line. Be emotional about it. Tell them, okay? Pull it on the full Monty in front of the VA and say, this is what these chemicals have done to me. Include your buddy statements too. Now, the VA is going to get all this and they're going to say, we need more evidence, or we're checking this, or whatever it is. You need to reply, and they usually give you 30 days, but you need to reply within that 30 days, and you need to reply and say, look, you folks have a duty to assist me in this matter. They have a duty to assist you in this matter. Let them know that you expect that they will comply with their duty to assist. If they ask for additional documentation, give it to them. If they say you need to do a C&P exam, by all means, attend the C&P exam. Document the examiner's name and observation. Don't sugarcoat anything to the examiner. Tell them not in nauseating detail what's happening to you, how you feel, the impact of your health. Don't hold back. Don't say, well, everything's fine. Because, boom, they're going to write, it says, veteran says he feels fine. I mean, say, doctor, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't, whatever it is, just pour it on. And again, nauseating detail. When you're through, request a copy of your C&P report and compare it to your medical evidence. Is the C&P report accurate or not? Does it contradict your medical evidence? If it does, why? What do we need to do to correct that? Because your medical evidence, all your medical evidence, including the C&P exams, need to support your evidence, needs to support you and your claim for your exposure risk. If you're denied appeal, you could do a supplemental claim, you could do a higher level review, or a board appeal, notice of decision. Identify the errors. They disregarded this exposure evidence. They disregarded this expert's report they disregarded the VA's own toxicology reports. Whatever it may be, bring it to their attention. Now, with supplemental claims, remember, or you can give additional documentation, additional evidence. With a higher level of review, you can't provide additional evidence, but you can give argument. And that's where someone like us or another VA accredited individual could step in and make those legal arguments for you by citing VA regulations, citing the different court cases that have looked at these kinds of issues. Because guess what? You're not the first and you won't be the last. They have probably seen pretty much everything at the VA. And so it's our job to help you get to that 100% and get you up there where you need to be because of your exposure. Lastly, monitor policy changes. Keep updated on the PACT Act and the National Academy of Medicine Studies. They may come out with something that says, well, those PCBs are linked to this. cancer or linked to this condition. If that's the case, jump on it. We'll send the information to the VA, say, look, this is what they said. And boom, your case has just gotten stronger. If you're denied and you don't appeal, you can always refile later if your disease becomes a presumptive condition. What can you do to help yourself? If you think you've been exposed, enroll in the VA Toxic Exposure Screening Program. Maintain a record of all your medical care and any new symptoms that might come up. Update your claim for secondary or worsening conditions. And by the way, it brings me to the point. If you have a claim for some kind of cancer, you're probably going to have some kind of secondary condition that's related to the cancer. So don't forget to claim that. Become educated. Become educated as to your eligibility for DIC. What happens if you pass away and your death is related to your exposure? What happens if you pass away and you have a spouse? What does your spouse need to do? So educate yourself. So takeaways today. If you served in a contaminated base, and more chances are you did, or you handled hazardous materials, chances are you probably did, you deserve full recognition and compensation. The key to success lies through documentation. Document. A credible medical nexus letter. Get your medical records in order. Get your ducks in a row. And persistence through appeal. They like to deny things to get them off their desk. I truly don't know this to be a fact, but I don't think that they really look at things the first time go around closely. I think the second glance on some kind of supplemental or higher level, that's when you get a more qualified individual to look at your issues. But that's just my opinion. But with the right legal and medical support, even a non-presumptive case for exposure can be successful. Hey folks, Dale Davidson again. Thank you for tuning in. I do appreciate it. I hope this game plan gave you something to think about. Check out this video. Toxic exposure in the U.S. military. The real stories for veterans. Okay? So until next time, have a blessed day.